Hello there. Welcome to this episode of Force Ghost Conversations. This is your host, Anthony King, and this week I'm joined by Christina Gano, aka Gano CJ on Twitter and Instagram, to discuss the first two episodes from The Acolyte. If you're a fan of the podcast and would like to consider pledging your support, there will be a link in the episode description for you to check out the various tiers offered. Also, please be sure to check out our TeePublic store to buy some Force Ghost Conversations merchandise. And without further ado, it's time to gather around the campfire for some Force Ghost Conversations. Hey everybody, welcome back to Force Ghost Conversations. When we are kind of live in this episode for the first time in quite some time. I hope that you enjoyed our episodes with Silver from Star Wars Thrifting, Dan from Coffee with Kenobi, of course Charlotte and Caitlin from Sky Talkers, and Martin and Christine Smith, the leads of the HalseyCon convention, for those pre-recorded episodes that we did basically throughout the month of May, as well as the Phantom Menace Legacy Conversations. Those were a lot of fun to put together. It was great chatting with all those folks, and I hope to have them again as guests on future episodes of the podcast, because it's a real delight to chat Star Wars with each and every one of them. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So this is a first time that we've done what I'm going to say is like a week-to-week episode, right? I didn't record this in advance, so I can talk about things that happened in the Star Wars Lucasfilm adjacent galaxy that have happened over the past week here. And in our typical segment called Cloud City Gossip. So yes, we get to do that again. And obviously the big thing that took place this week is that The Acolyte is out. If you haven't seen the first two episodes of that of this new show on Disney Plus, which is doing rave numbers, I saw it had just had 4.8 million views or streams on Disney Plus in the first couple of days, which is just mind-boggling and astronomically cool. I think it's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, Disney Plus release at this point in the year. Go check it out on Disney Plus, because obviously we're talking about it in today's episode with Christina. So you want to make sure that you've caught up on all that, and then you can come back right back to this podcast and listen to all of our spoiler discussions. We get into a lot of things and talk about the speculation and the storytelling of it all, the mystery. It's all on the table here, so you don't want to miss out on all that. I do give a spoiler warning in the episode, but here's just another warning, awooga, before we get into the main topic of it all. So yes, The Acolyte came out. I did actually have the pleasure of seeing it in the movie theater, which I know a lot of people in the Force Ghost Conversations community did get to see this on the big screen. AMC and several other theaters across the country did a fan screening, which we were very fortunate to be able to attend here at Disney Springs. Just a quick 20-30 minute drive down the highway for us, and we attended with Mary and Chaz Purdue, some loyal listeners and previous guests on the show. It was a blast to hang out with them and to chat about Star Wars and just to sit with them too while we were watching this new Star Wars experience for the first time. So it was wonderful. Thank you to them for saving us a spot in line while we were able to get over there after quitting time from our day jobs, which was a real treat and delight. So there, all that is The Acolyte is now out into the world. That is something that's going on. But you know what else is out in the world finally? Is Star Wars Hunters, a brand new video game on the Switch, Nintendo Switch, as well as iOS and Android, which is kind of like this in-universe battlegrounds multiplayer game. I don't have a Switch, nor do I really do a whole lot of gaming on my iPhone. So this one is maybe one that I don't really get to play that often, if at all. But I know it's out and a lot of people have been enjoying it so far. So if that's your jam and you have the access to it, then go for it. Go play this fun game and tell me how you like it and all that stuff. Hit us up on all the social media channels, of course, in order to tell us what you think about it. Because I hope it's a wonderful game, because I know a lot of people have been waiting for it for quite some time. And additionally, in the adjacent Star Wars kind of galaxy is the novelization for Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, is now out, written by V. Castro. It is... I haven't gotten a chance to read it yet because there's so much coming out. I mean, next Tuesday, The High Republic, Temptation of the Force comes out. I've been reading some other things just personally to get my reading list down before more Star Wars stuff comes into my basket again of reading. So eventually I will get to that, and I will do a comparison, because we still haven't done our Rebel Moon Part 2 conversation here on the podcast, which is coming up in the future, because in August, I believe, it's when the extended director's cuts are coming out. The R-rated 3-hour versions of both climactic movies are coming our way, and I can't wait to see how that plays out first and foremost. But I know that the novelizations are based off of those adult 3-hour versions, and there's a lot more goodness in there, that if you like the movies, or maybe you want more explanation, or maybe you want to spoil yourself to what actually happens in the 3-hour versions, and that is certainly your purview to do so. So go check that out. You can get it on Amazon or any other place that sells books these days. I'm probably going to opt for the Kindle version just to save on paper, but that's just me. Who knows? And that's all I can think of in the Star Wars and Lucasfilm galaxy over the past week. The big news is The Acolyte. I hope that you've watched it, because on the other side of this break, Christina and I are going to do a full spoiler discussion for episodes 1 and 2 of The Acolyte. So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a brand new Star Wars show upon us. The Acolyte. Yes, for light and life. The High Republic era is now in a live-action sense on Disney+, with the first 2 episodes now appearing on our streaming platforms. Of course, we are here at Forest Ghost Conversations to break down each and every episode every week, but we have some guests now, and I have one particular guest this week that I'm really excited to bring back onto the show. You may know her from Twitter as Gano CJ, but around here, we like to call her Christina. Christina, welcome back to Forest Ghost Conversations. How are you doing? And for Light and Life, Bright Suns, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me back. Somehow I have returned.
Somehow you have found your way back onto the podcast, and it was at my invitation, because you are an awesome guest, and I'm thrilled to chat about these 2 episodes with you. You just told me before we got onto this recording here, full spoiler to everybody, we're recording on a Thursday. You told me you watched these episodes before getting onto this podcast, so you have about the freshest mind ever when it comes to watching this and then getting behind a microphone to record and talk about it.
Absolutely, I did my homework.
Yeah, I was about to say, we'd be having a lot different conversation if you hadn't watched the episodes, and then we tried to chat through a 2-episode discussion on it. It would have been funny, actually, to see how much you'd have gotten right if I just asked these questions, and like the banter back and forth would have been an interesting play on all this. But I'm glad that you did your homework. You are a very good student.
Thank you. Gold star for me.
Exactly. You no demerits today. We are all on the good honor system for this one, and like I said, this episode of the series now is about the High Republic era. We are in this brand new timeline in the live action sense, but this is not anything new to fans of the expanded universe of Star Wars. There have been several books. Many books, not even just several. As you know, working in a bookstore, there are a ton of books on the High Republic. So before we get into the discussion of these first 2 episodes of The Acolyte themselves, I want to know about your experiences with the High Republic era already. Have you been keeping up with the books, and perhaps did you even watch maybe the Young Jedi Adventure show, the animated show that is on Disney+? How have you been keeping up with the High Republic, if at all?
So I have been collecting all the books. I'm just a little bit behind with reading them.
I love it. Collecting, and they're sitting on a book stand that's slowly getting higher and higher.
Literally a pile is like a pile. Like as soon as the new books come out, I'm like, mine. I know Temptation of the Force is coming out next week. I'm like, I'm gonna get that one as well, and it's gonna be in the pile to read. But I have read all of Phase 1 for High Republic, so I have Phase 2 to then complete, and then the ones for Phase 3. But I'm loving the ride. And I've also done a few episodes of Young Jedi Adventures. I am Nubs Nation for life.
Nubs Nation, indeed. Yes.
We are Nubs Nation here in this house. So, but no, I actually, one point, I forget which book it was, but I ended up reading one of the High Republic books in a day.
As you should, because they're great.
Because I could not put it down, and I was also like, I want to know what happens next. And I just love with the books on how unique it's taking with this turn of what we know already from the Jedi beforehand. Like, we know that a lot of the Jedi see the Force in different ways, and then we also knew, like, back in High Republic era, there are man-eating plants. So,
Yeah. Well,
and I
Christina,
love that new aspect.
absolutely. Which one would you say is your favorite so far? Was it the one that you couldn't put down?
Oh, oof. It would be have to be Light of the Jedi, because it was the one that basically
Mm-hmm.
started everything. And also, I feel like I may be an underrated one on this one, but Into the Dark was also really good as well, because I love Reef. I
Reed
love
Silas,
with
man.
his
Yeah.
I love his character, and also that's the one that introduces the Drenger in there,
Mm-hmm.
really, with more about them. And then of course the icon that is Geode, like
Oh,
the icon that is Geode, we
the
stand.
stoic geode. How could we ever
Yes,
forget?
we can never. Everyone needs a Geode in their lives. So
Look, I 100% agree with you on there. Light of the Jedi is a fantastic book by Charles Soule. If anyone hasn't read it yet, or maybe it's sitting on your to read shelf at home, pick it up because it is a fantastic entryway into the High Republic stories, and I think you won't regret it. I mean, it's so full of action and adventure, and you get introduced to the Nile. It's a great way to start your journey into this new era that we now see fully fleshed out in live action in the Acolyte. And then in addition, I will also say I used to say that Light of the Jedi was my favorite Star Wars book of all time. Now that Eye of Darkness by George Mann, the first book in Phase 3 of the High Republic, has come out, blew it out of the water. That is fantastic. So I know you have a ways on your bookshelf to get to that one, but when you do, I think you'll be thoroughly surprised and how much you enjoy that book, and hopefully other people too have read it and get to see all the wacky goodness that comes out of that one. It is a true delight to read that one.
well, already I'm intrigued because the cover is the Eye of the Nihil Martian Rowe. It's like
Yeah,
he's on the
our boy
cover,
Marchion's
so
on there.
yeah, so it's like immediately attracts up. Like, yes,
Absolutely, and always get a shout out to Nubs Nation when we can. How could we not forget our little
absolutely,
guy?
Nubs Nation. Shout out to everybody else in Nubs Nation. We love you.
Nubs Nation for life, indeed. Now, Christina, when you first heard the title The Acolyte, what kind of thoughts came into your mind? How did you think that could even be connected to Star Wars at all?
I actually thought it connected pretty well, because when I knew the word of the acolyte and what it meant, it kind of makes sense, because it's almost like an assistant or a follower to
Yeah.
like a very much hierarchy person, and figure acolyte could then be relevant to an apprentice or a Padawan, because it's technically they're an assistant to a higher arc, especially I would say like in the Sith aspect, because
Mm-hmm.
it's always like the
Mm-hmm.
rule of two. So you have like the main one, and then you have an apprentice to help like fulfill and do the dirty work, kind of.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like when I heard acolyte, I'm like, ooh, so it's like it's gonna be somebody helping somebody, and the way that the trailers were showing, it could have been either way, with either the Jedi or with whoever this masked person is
The
that
Master, whoever they're
the
saying, yeah.
masked master, yeah. So when I heard about what that, I'm like, oh, this is perfect for Star Wars.
Hmm.
Like the title as well. It's like, yes, Chef's Kiss is
Yeah.
perfect.
I gotta say, it gave me a second of pause because the only time that I really ever heard the term used before was growing up in church when I had to be an acolyte and
Yeah.
light candles. And I always associated it with lighting candles and kind of fire. And I didn't until I looked up the definition in prep for this when I was like, oh, it's a assistant. That's really what I was doing. I was just helping out the ceremony in a religious context. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But also, fire comes into this too in some way. I gotta imagine there's some semblance of fire, right? The dark side and fire, they go hand in hand
Oh
together.
yeah.
These two meld together. They are hand in hand in the same one symbiotically. Um, and you make a great point there. The rule of two in the dark side. But I will, maybe throw a thought in there, Christina. What if the mask guy is the apprentice to a master, and then he's trying to take
Ah.
on May or another, train them to then overthrow whoever the real master is,
Oh,
a la
Anthony, you've made
like
a
a
point.
Dooku and an Asajj Ventress eventually maybe becoming strong enough to overthrow Sidious, right? The cycle continues of this deception and deceivery. And again, treating the Sith as like this religious entity, right? Where they're practicing
Yeah.
these teachings. Kind of have that same viewpoint there on that one. What do you think about that?
Oh no, you bring up a good point with that. Because that then makes the Acolyte the more appropriate with title for this, especially with the concept they're going with. It makes sense. It does make more sense that way. Oh my goodness. Mind blown.
Mind blown. We got a ways to go there though on where we're at the story. We're just getting little glimpses. This mystery is unraveling before our eyes. And to the listeners at home, if I didn't mention this already, we are going full spoilers into episodes 1 and 2 of The Acolyte. So if you haven't seen those yet on Disney Plus, you better go watch those now, just like Christina did before coming to this episode.
Watch it before listening to this podcast at all. Stay.
That's right. That's right. You don't want to get spoiled to the goodness that happens in these 2 episodes here. So you've been forewarned. Come back to this podcast if you haven't, and then listen to our great conversation afterwards here. So
And then you'll get it.
and yeah, then it'll kind of make sense for you here, or maybe you just listen through it and then just like kind of figure out along the way what the mystery is and all that. But I've said in the last minute here, the show does have a ton of mysteries, Christina. One that kind of gets solved early on is that May and Osha are twins. They were showcasing Amanda Stenberg's character and different versions of her, and I'm like, are they 2 of the same? Are they 1 the same? These are all great questions. But when you saw the trailers in preparation and other promotional material for this series, did you think that Amanda Stenberg will be playing multiple characters? Did the twin theory come into your mind at any point, or was it just one character in different outfits?
Low key, I thought it was one character, but then seeing more of the promo work and what definitely like solidified it for me was the poster for it.
Mm-hmm.
Was that seeing the hairstyles on Osha and May, it was similar but yet different. And
Yeah.
then in the promo, like the poster for it, you saw 2 Amanda Stenbergs, and I'm like, huh. I'm like thinking, did they do that on purpose to like show 2 different sides of May, which was the character that was solidified that she was playing? Or are they throwing in there that maybe she's playing another one too? So that kind of like sensed it when I saw the poster with 2 of her, and I'm like, ah, they're going with a twin theory this time.
Yeah, I gotta say you're right on with that. The poster kind of being like a hint / wink wink giveaway to this debate. Like I said to Christina off air, but I'm telling the listeners now, I had the fortunate pleasure, along with Mrs. Forster's conversations on Monday, to go see both of these episodes in a movie theater. And when we sat down in our seats, we still had like a half hour to go until the showing started, and they had on the screen the full poster just blown up a bit. And at the top of that, as you've seen from the poster that is out there are 2 Mays or 2 Oshas, or a May and an Osha, right? At the time, I didn't even know that Osha was a character. I just knew May was one of the central characters. I think that's probably from the promotional material. So I'm like, what's the deal here? Are they 2? And that's kind of where we started thinking our conversations are on that one. We're like, okay, this must be a twin kind of deal here, which is not new to Star Wars in any way, because Luke and Leia obviously being twins, and this kind of 2 being 1, even a dyad kind of deal, like a Rey and a Kylo Ren. My mind also potentially was like, could it be like a flashback May that could explain the different hairstyles, or even a future May at various points, or maybe she just puts on like a wig or like hair extensions or something like that to differentiate herself when to showcase all that. But I liked that this show didn't let the mystery linger too long. I'm very glad that they didn't spend 8 episodes being like, are we together here on this one, or is it just is it 1 character, or is it 2 characters? Like, there have been other shows that just let the mystery linger too long, and for this one, I'm glad that they just kind of went right into it and said, no, there too, May is alive, right? Not they find out that both are alive, May and Osha. And I'm just glad that they just went right into it and just didn't leave things hanging like that. So What did you think about kind of how that went out and all that stuff?
No, I agree. I'm glad, because besides Luke and Leia and then the Dyad thing, there's also Star Wars Visions fans out there. The Twins episode as well that features with
Yeah.
Am and Kare being with twins of the dark side as well. So I was thinking that you have representation of literally different sets of twins with two of the light side with Luke and Leia, two of the dark side with Kare and Am, who then one of them turns to the light side, and then the Dyad. So I'm glad that it kind of hit right away that it's oh yes, they're twins. So with that, but we know further on there's probably going to be more mysteries and stuff. So instead of lingering for this one, and probably this is the quickest that it's been revealed with a twin thing, rather than going through a whole entire movie or through a trilogy, finding out that Luke and Leia were brother and sister and twins. And same thing with Kylo and Rey, figuring a movie and a half before realizing, oh, there's a connection with there. So I like that right away. They're twins. Gotcha. Let's go.
Yeah, get right to the point. Tell us all the information we need to know, and let's get forward with the story here. And, this show alludes heavily, I will say, to a major incident that happened 16 years prior, featuring the destruction of Osha's village on Brendok, and seemingly the death of her family. And then Osha was saved by Master Sol from, quote-unquote, the fire, as they called it, and then is brought to the Jedi Temple to begin her training. Somehow, then, May also survives, who is supposed to be the one that sets this fire off, and she is then trained as to become this dark side assassin, serving some unknown quote-unquote master, the person that we see with a mask later on. So as the story begins, then May kills Master Endara, and then she's on the hunt to eliminate the remaining Jedi who are there for the incidents. These are Torben, Kalnaka, and Master Sol. What do you think happened on Osha's planet all those years ago? And it seems like there's more to that story there than what we're alluded to.
Oh yeah, because it could honestly be with anything really. The fire sounds like something very big, and of course, I'm thinking fires. It brings me back to Tales of the Empire with Morgan Elsbeth with her story on Grievous and the battle droids, basically demolishing her town with her people in it as well. And it's very similar to what's happened with Osha and May. And it wouldn't be that surprising if somehow May might have encountered this quote unquote masked master earlier on and could have caused her to be yes, do this, set this place on fire, and could have caused with that to be to then destroy the entirety of the wherever it is, and then probably purposely had it to try to either keep Osha alive or maybe not, because it is a surprise that they're both survived. So it's just a matter of, was it meant to kill everybody, or was it meant to be to kill everybody except Osha and May, and then have them figure this out themselves to whatever is then the aftermath of the fires.
I'm just curious, you're bringing a great point here. I like your theory about maybe the master was influencing some of this behind the scenes already there. That's a good one there. My brain is going to a little bit of The Last Jedi on this one, where when we learn that Ben Solo destroyed the temple, right? Yeah. There is perhaps different, not of opinions, but of your viewpoint of how these events went down. So Ben remembers Luke very menacingly with the lightsaber, right? And Luke remembers himself being very kind with and what the reality was is somewhere in between there, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, what if the villagers saw things happen one way, and the Jedi maybe saw things another way, and then there's Osha and May that have a different viewpoint. We're going to maybe see all the vantage points of this particular event over the course of these 8 episodes or something like that, which I think could be a really cool thing to explore overall. And then there's the other aspect of it too, where is maybe the Jedi are just really hiding a mistake that they made. I mean, that could also be something that's on the table when it comes to this stuff. This guy, Torben, secludes himself from everybody, and he feels totally guilty and takes poison willingly. Like, he feels totally on edge and guilty about something that happened all this years ago, and people just don't do that for no reason.
No, and also something might have happened too, in order, like from May's perspective, that made maybe it was done in a way that May might have seen as the four Jedi that were set on with there when it happened. Hence, on like why else would she be going only after four particular Jedi? Like something must have happened that she might have seen that they did something wrong or something bad in order for her to go after them. Because it's very particular that she's going after particular ones, and she's managed to do half of them already. Like half of them are gone, so it's just Kalnaka and Sol that are left that she's going after. So that's also another interesting thing. It's like, what did she see, or what was her point of view of those four particular Jedi that made her want to then go after them, or made the master that she's following to go after them?
Yeah, was the master like, these are the ones that caused all the downfall of your lifestyle and your family, not you?
Probably that's it. He again, it's like going back to seeing if like he was an influence on that, and to see that maybe the influence of like doing that, and then it's the influence like, no, you did not cause this, they did. Go after them, kill them. They're the ones that destroyed your home and all that.
Right. Earn your way into my favor by ending these Jedi. Yeah. Ooh,
literally.
The dark side is menacing, I tell you what.
That's scary. But the masks are cool.
The mask is cool, and the voice modulation is really cool.
Exactly. It's like that's a plus with the dark side. The masks are cool all over, between Kylo Ren, between Vader, all of them. They're so cool.
Yeah, they look cool, and the cosplay is pretty neat when you see that.
Oh yeah.
So, Master Indara is one of those people that were already killed literally in the first couple of minutes of this first episode. And I think people were really excited to see Carrie-Anne Moss in Star Wars, the actress portraying Master Indara. So, like I said, she does meet an untimely end from May's dagger. And this happened again in the opening scene. Were you expecting that to happen? Do you think we'll maybe see her character again maybe in a later episode in this, a flashback? What are you thinking?
First of all, I was very upset that happened because I was looking forward to seeing more Indara, and the fact that she got killed at the very beginning, I'm like, no! They pulled the whole
I had the same reaction.
thing.
Yeah.
They pulled the whole Scream thing with Drew Barrymore, and they're like, no, why'd you do that?
Oh, good call. That is a great pull.
It's
this
like
is Scream.
They showcase with that. This is Scream. There's a mass killer.
Who is the Yes, exactly. This is just Scream in Star Wars.
This is a whodunit in Star Wars.
I mean, we already know who done it, but who's the one behind the whodunit?
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'm thinking of flashbacks most likely, because I'm pretty sure we're gonna be going back to like the incident with the fires. I'm pretty certain we're probably going to see that later on. So if anything, we're probably going to see then what exactly happened, like I mentioned before, with the four Jedi that May's going after. So it's like they had some involvement. So maybe we're going to see Indara doing something in the flashback that triggers then causes May on her rampage.
Right. She's
whatever
is the catalyst that sets her off, right?
Yeah, because that's the only other way I could picture her, because I'm not sure if she would come back as a Force ghost in any way, but I'm thinking flashback is probably the best bet, just to like clarify what went on during that night at the incident.
I think that's exactly right too. They wouldn't have cast someone, let's just say, of that caliber, or maybe they would, and then not to bring them back in any way, shape, or form. She's also on the poster, so I will note that too.
Exactly,
so this character must have a bit more of a presence because they're using them so heavily in promotional materials in support of this show. I gotta tell you, did you happen to see the Phantom Menace in the re-release, Christina?
I did not get a chance, sadly.
Okay, no worries there. That's totally fine.
I was busy that weekend with May the 4th and other things, especially.
There's a lot of stuff going on there. Blue Milk released. Everybody was having a good time.
It was a great time to be a Star Wars fan.
It always is a great time. Yep, exactly. For those people that got to see it, and I was one of them, you actually got to see a little bit of this opening sequence in the cinema. It was like a special sneak preview of the Acolyte
Very
in preparation
nice.
for this. So that was kind of like my, oh, I was actually seeing the first scene of this show, and then it cut out just before May throws the dagger into Indara. So that was the big shock for me, seeing that fully sequenced out, was that they actually went there. They went there. And not only did they
They pulled
go
a
there,
scream.
they
And
did pull
they
a
got her.
scream, but they did it in such a way that was like a Jedi, well, a good Jedi, let's just say that, will be selfless, right? They'll see there's a danger of a person that could be in trouble, and they're willing to lay down their own self and life for the protection of others. And that's where Indara meets her downfall, is doing a selfless Jedi act, right? There's that alien creature by the bar with the little kid. It's adorable.
Oh, the
And
kid is so precious.
May throws the dagger, tries to do the 2-for-1, and recognizes this almost in a way fault that they exploit. And Indara uses the Force to stop that one, protecting the person, and then at the same rate gets stabbed herself by one of May's daggers. So, if you got to go out, you're going out like a true Jedi. But it is a big shock, I would say, for people that may have seen that scene in the theaters and were expecting maybe this character to be a very big part of the series overall. And then the first 5 minutes, you're like, nope, that's it.
Well,
Lights out on that one.
especially with all the promotion, like they keep on, especially like Star Wars revealed the character posters. They did one for Indara. She's on the poster.
Yeah,
Like she
exactly.
was. It made it seem like she was going to be in the series for the long run, and so to see like in the first opening scene, the first 5 minutes, like a major character like that we know or were introduced to through with there be killed off. I had to pause the episode for a bit because I was shook.
I don't blame you.
I literally had to pause. I'm like, why? What are you doing?
And I'll say too, to its benefit of doing this show has stakes. Like these, we don't know the fates of any of these characters that are on screen here. Anything is fair game. We don't see any of these characters right now that will pop up in the Phantom Menace or anything preceding the Phantom Menace. I know there's a few books in the pre-Phantom Menace era. Anything's fair game, and so Master Indara now, Master Torben. Who knows, Master Sol and Kelnaka? You better watch out, guys. Nothing is safe.
We must protect Kelnaka and Sol.
That's right.
Must.
Our favorite boys. We gotta protect them.
Yes. Protect the Wookiee at all costs.
Protect the Wookiee. That's right. So in the second episode now, Master Torben, who we've alluded to, and we've kind of alluded to his fate, is May's next target and victim. And before she takes him out, he is stuck behind a difficult to penetrate kind of force field of sorts, meditating. And it is said that he has taken the Barash vow. Have you heard that phrase before, Christina? And what do you know, if anything, about the Barash vow? And that's okay if you don't.
Yeah, because I was going to say, this is my first time hearing about the Barash vow, so I just thought he was in very deep well, it seemed like he was in very, very deep meditation and had the force like shield almost like around him, surrounding, so that he stays in with that deep sense of meditation. That's why as many times as May was trying to like get in there, she could not. So, but inform me with the Barash vow, please.
To the Barash vow, that came from a Charles Soule comic. So there were two comics that Charles Soule has done. One in 2017 was his Vader run, which is where this Barash vow first starts. And in that, the whole first kind of story arc of that series is where Vader has to find. So the story here that Palpatine puts in front of him is that in order to create your Sith lightsaber, you need to kill a Jedi. And of course, after Order 66, there weren't many Jedi left that were easily trackable and findable in order to kill, and then use their kyber crystal to bleed and then turn red, and then create the foundation of your next lightsaber. So what he really needed to do then was find one of the Jedi that had taken the quote-unquote Barash vow, which was a shutting off of the Force, right? Not a shutting off of the Force. Sorry, let me rephrase that entirely here. They shut themselves off from
the Force.
the Jedi, and they become so intertwined with the Force that they're basically just in a constant state of meditation forever, like until they feel like they're ready to begin anew again, right? They may feel like they've done something wrong in the past. They may have tapped into some dark side stuff here and there. They felt like maybe they were losing their connection to the Force. And this is them just kind of centering themselves and just focusing on their one-to-one relationship with the Force. It's becoming so Force focused that everything else doesn't matter around them. And Master Torben here, in this visual sense, literally creates some force field. That's a kind of a new thing that I don't recall being in the comics when they talked about the Barash Vow, but that's a neat little thing that like even the Force is like it's so powerful, this connection, this communion with the Force, basically, that nothing can penetrate that. And I don't know if that was his intent or just a byproduct of the Barash Vow, but it's really neat to see that just kind of play out on the screen to begin with.
Well, it could be kind of with his thing, because remember with High Republic era, everybody looks at the Force like differently. So I realize it's like stronger and it works in more unique ways in the High Republic era than it does later on when we get into the
Hmm.
Skywalker saga. So this could be something from High Republic era as left over, kind of, that could have been created from with the Force. So with you saying of him being in a deep state with meditation, it could be possible being in meditation for that long or with ever that much power with connection to the Force, it might have like helped him create like the shield, so this way nothing else could like disturb him from this deep meditation.
I mean, that's true. That's true. You're absolutely right. Like the diminishing of the Force and the ability to wield it that we see in the prequels is not there, right? The dark side has not fully shrouded everything as far as we know
Yeah.
at this point yet. And it leads me to wonder what happened 16 years ago. Is this his guilt playing out, right? He feels so guilty about what happened that he feels like he needs to shut himself off from the order. He needs to become this entity that is just stuck in this constant meditation. And he's floating up in the air too, and his full crisscross applesauce I don't know, stance there. I wonder how they did this. Was he sitting on a chair actually, just up in the air, and they CG'd that out? I'm very intrigued by the behind the scenes of this
We need
already.
a behind the scenes of that because that's intriguing as well. And that also because we see he has a scar on his like left side and then his eye is
Yeah,
also different as well. So
poor guy's
I
receding hairline is going away too.
like I am pretty certain within the next few episodes, not sure when, but we pretty much I feel like we'll get a flashback to what happened 16 years ago because then this way that could be the moment where he gets that scar and that
Hmm.
happens to his eye and then we'll also find out what caused him to go into this state for him to
Yeah.
meditate like that much and for him to go into this deep meditation. So it's just a matter of when we're going to get that episode now.
It's one of the things I'm most looking forward to find out, like, the how did we get here? What are the things? And it's clearly this climactic event that led to these events, one way, shape, or form, trickling down the pathway. But it seems like it affected this Master Torben more than anybody. Kelnaka's not shut off from the Force. He's just kind of recluse, or not for the Force, but from the Jedi. He's still kind of just reclusive. He's not locked away in some echo chamber in a way of the Force where he's not
No.
listening to anybody.
He
Uh,
kind of like isolated himself in like this area. So it seems like the only ones that stayed with the Republic and the Council, I believe, would be with Sol and Indara.
yeah,
Feel
yeah,
like they're the
more
only
than anything,
two.
Soul. Yeah,
Yeah,
training
especially
these
Sol.
younglings.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
Very intriguing, very intriguing. And again, this is just tip of the iceberg when it comes to the High Republic stuff here that they're showcasing. This is the waning days of it too, because I feel like, we're right there on the cusp of this prequel era that we're long awaiting for to see again in a live action sense. And again, we're talking this timeline here with its location in the timeline. This show has already offered a look at several new characters who we have not seen in live action before, and these include, but are not limited to, Master Soul, Jekki, Yord, Vernestra Rowe, just to name a few. So, what characters have been standouts to you, Christina, and why?
Definitely, I would have to say my favorite so far is Master Sol. The reasoning is because I've been sensing a lot of Qui-Gon. I can see
Mm.
Qui-Gon Jinn in him.
Mm.
Like the way he talks with the younglings, the way he's willing to like kind of break the Jedi code in a way and like go against it, but in a more mannerful way, just like similar to the way Qui-Gon handled things back in the
Mm-hmm.
Phantom Menace. So that's like a very nice parallel with that. And the way he treats
Yeah.
with Jackie, his Padawan, which Jackie is great as well, and also Yord Horde over here were great.
Oh, I was gonna say, are you part of the Yord Horde?
We're part of the Yord Horde, yes. Him and his yellow lightsaber, yes, I'm here for it.
I love it. I love it. Master Soul rocks, by the way. Like from first viewing of that show, and I watched it again on Tuesday when the episodes premiered as well on Disney Plus. I said, "This guy rocks." I was asked a question today, and someone asked me if I could be trained by any Jedi, like if I were a Padawan, who would I want to be my master? And I without hesitation, said Qui-Gon. But in the back of
Mhm.
my head, I said, once I have eight episodes behind, once I know the full story they're trying to tell this season, it might Master Soul might be rising the ranks to rival or even surpass Qui-Gon, depending on how he handles himself the rest of the season,
Oh,
which I think is the most
absolutely.
high praise possible for a guy that the actor himself doesn't really speak English. He's Korean, and he basically had to learn English to say the lines for this character, which is mind-boggling that someone could even do that. And also the fact that you wouldn't know that because of how good he speaks English in the episodes.
Exactly. Like he did so well with learning with English for this role, and it's so fascinating. And I want to even know like the process he went through with that. Like also, did he watch Star Wars in Korean when he was growing
Yes.
up with this?
Yeah.
Like what it's like more behind of like knowing, because we know Amandala is a big prequels gal.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we know that prequels definitely had some kind of impact with this, and you can sense it with, especially with the parallels of Master Soul and Qui-Gon Jinn. They're literally
Mm-hmm.
like each other's parallels. Like that's the High Republic version of. And then Jackie is almost like similar to Obi-Wan, being like, "Hey, let me try this. Let me try this." So it's
Yeah.
like
It's
nice little
wild.
parallels to the prequels, and I love that
You're
so
right. There are
much.
more hints to odes, let's say, homages to the Phantom Menace. Jackie, great example of being like an Obi-Wan character. I'm ready. This is her first mission. She's out and about, uh, following things almost to a T, right? Asking. I love that she's like permission to speak freely and
Yeah,
all that. Like she having this
like
great back and
seeing
forth with her
with that
master.
interaction, it basically brought to me. I'm like, that's literally Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in the Phantom Menace, and I love we're getting that type of parallel. So it's like these are brand new characters, but they do have like characteristics and some remnants of like characters we know and love. Because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people I know are big Obi-Wan fans. A lot of them are Qui-Gon fans, and like if they want not they're not sure with these characters, you can be like, hey, Master Soul is like has a little essence of Qui-Gon in him, and Jackie has a little essence of Obi-Wan in her. And it's just and that will probably get them to be like, oh, okay, maybe give this a show a try.
Yeah. Yeah. Master Soul, I mean, this is probably the character that I'm most looking forward to seeing across the rest of the season here, because if he keeps up his kindness, his compassion, his openness, his understanding of this larger force, like I just can't wait to see where this character goes and grows, and as we learn more about him and see him in different instances and put in different situations. I'm already seeing a confrontation with the Jedi Council or whatever subcommittee that they're putting together in next week's episode. That's causing them to go from the place that they know that there's going to be an attack potentially, and and he's being pulled via bureaucratical reason to go have a conversation in a committee. I I'm excited to see that bureaucracy just play out, because this is the stuff that we see cause problems in the prequels. So the errors are already falling into place here that are
Exactly.
going to lead to the rise of the Empire.
Also, it's like curiosity because like he is one of the four that May's going after, and I have a funny feeling that Soul is going to probably be the last one she's
I think you're
try
probably
to
right.
go
Yeah.
for. So it's just also curious to see like how also that happened, but also will we get any flashback with him and Osha, because Osha was his
Hmm.
Padawan at one point. So to
Yeah.
see like their dynamic and what happened, like because Osha like again, we're going back to parallels. Like she left, just like Ahsoka left.
And the question is why? What caused her to
Exactly.
leave? It
Yeah.
seems more
So
amicable, right, than Ahsoka leaving. It seems like she just kind of
yeah,
left,
because
and
with
then people
Ahsoka,
said okay.
yeah, it's more different. It was also on her decision as well too. But like, Soul, even when they find her, he had like faith. Like he knew that Osha was not the one that killed Master
Mm-hmm.
Andara. He knew
Yep.
that it wasn't her, and had the faith in her still. So they still have like that connection as a Master and a Padawan would have. So it's just curious to see like what their endeavors were like or adventures were like together as a Master and an apprentice.
Yeah, I love that he still kept the hologram of her.
Yeah.
Um, and Jackie pointing that out too. She's like, "Hey, why do you still have an attachment to that?" And he's like, "Hey, if you don't remember your mistakes, you'll never move forward." Right?
Yeah.
He very much embodies that. Like, in The Last Jedi, one of the best lines I think of that movie is Yoda saying, "We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters." Right? In the sense that it is. We want, as teachers, we want our students to succeed. Their failures are our failures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Soul says, I'm paraphrasing, but he says it to some degree in the episode. Says like, if she did this, then it's a failure on my part because I trained her, right? So
Yeah.
like, I should be the one to go out there and confront her and bring her in. Like that's my accountability on this matter. Um, and of course, his everyone, and despite everyone saying like the evidence against her is apparent, right? Literally, the person all takes apparently is someone just coming in there and saying she did it, and that's good
Yeah.
enough, right? Apparently, there's no other evidence needed.
Literally.
um, and he's the only one again that's like, it's okay. I believe you. Let's see this through. Let's play this out. It's gonna be okay.
He is the
Um,
one voice of reasoning in between
eh,
everybody because everybody's following protocols again. And again, him taking like different aspect, different step. He's saying like, I trust her. This is not it. Let's find out. Like, let's do this. So that's why he goes to himself to find the shipwreck and to find Osha. And then him himself goes to try to find May next and what's her next step. So he's like
yeah,
willing to do this. So
that's exactly right. I mean, I love that you said he's the one voice of reason there, because I think that's pretty much what I said too. Like finally,
yeah.
someone that's thinking logically and critically here, and not just going along with the curve and all that. They're like, something's not right here. She has a clear alibi of being like, I was here on the ship. I was in deep space with the Trade Federation, which by the way, Trade Federation back in Star Wars, everybody. Phantom Menace,
Nemodians!
Phantom Menace,
Nemodians!
woohoo! Uh, prequel kids win again.
The
Um,
prequel kids are winning.
uh, again, like I said, can't wait to see where this guy goes. I'm very excited about that. To the flip side of that, thumbs down, Vernestra Rowe. Come on, girl. You are the. I was had so high
Oh,
hopes for you. I love you as a character in the High Republic stories. You are fantastic. You are You are the youngest Jedi Knight ever. You are a prodigy of the Force. You have a light whip. You have your own Padawan, Emery. You are fantastic. You do so many cool adventures and fun things. And then it looks like, 100 plus years later, she has grown into the dogma that we then see in The Phantom Menace, as she's calling up these committees and saying, well, the evidence is against her. This is it. And then calling Soul back, even though Kalnaka is probably the next target on this one.
hmm
I'm like, oh
that
no.
made me so
Oh no, Vernestra.
disappointed.
No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, no. Don't do this to
Like
me.
in the book, she's one of my favorites, and because she was like also with being put as a Jedi Knight so young, giving Emery as like uh, when she was still very young, he was still young, and also when a lot of stuff was happening with Starlight Beacon too. So she had a lot on her shoulders as well. So I'm curious to see what happened within that span period when we meet her in the books and then the Acolyte. What happened?
Oh,
Like,
I know.
who hurt
I
you,
know.
Renestra? Who hurt you? Who
Well,
hurt you?
I mean, to a degree, without knowing fully what happened in those years, I gotta think that a person of her age that has seen many generations of Jedi come through, friends that she had that are now come and gone, left the order or passed away, I think it's gotta be hard on someone, and it probably hardened her. and having Padawans, seeing them go off, and then having more Padawans and all that. That weighs on a person. I mean, it weighs on any human, frankly,
Oh yeah.
in the real world, and I can only imagine what that does to a Jedi that's now living over 200 years of a lifespan. That now she's like, I remember when you were just a little baby boy, Master Soul, and now you are a wise Jedi teacher now going off to see with your Padawan murdered all these people.
It kind of like it blew my mind for a moment with that moment when she was saying like I remember when you were like a youngling as well when she walked in with Soul with the younglings. I'm like I forget low key that Vernestra is older.
Yeah, yeah,
with that. So it blew my mind a little bit there. I'm like I completely forgot you are older than him.
yeah. Whatever genes that Barasafi didn't get in the
Oh
in
my
the
god.
aging department when it comes to their species. Uh,
I
for,
love her also throwing back to Tales of the Empire here in this episode. I love that we're referring back to Tales of the Empire.
everything's fair game, listeners. It's all Star Wars. It's all one story. We're in the big timeline of it all. uh it just it's hard to see, and I hope that she regains some of that stuff that I remember from the books, but I understand also at the same time if she doesn't too, because the years are hard on people. It
Oh
just is.
yeah.
It just makes me a little sad to see that the dogma of the Jedi got to one of the best. One of the best.
Well, we'll see what happens because the light whip is coming out.
The
We've
light whip
seen
is
it in the
coming. She
trailers, we've
still got
seen it
it.
in the teasers, so she still has it, and it's going to come out at some point. So it's just a matter of what's going to happen for her to actually use it. Because right now it seems like she's very reformed that she would not bring the lightsaber out again, but
Mm-hmm.
we do not know. Something may trigger off because she does use it. We've seen it
Well,
in the teasers.
I gotta tell you, that was one of the things that I was like, will they do it in this episode? And you know, not at this episode, but in the overall series, right? I was like, are they gonna somehow do a light whip? That's the great question. And in conversations with my wife, Mrs. Forsker's conversations, she was like, "Yeah, I think they'll do the light whip." And I was like, "Will they be able to pull it off?" And they did it. I seen it in the teaser. It's gonna come. It's gonna happen, and it's gonna be a glorious moment when it is finally unveiled on our screens. And I can't wait for it to finally happen. It's gonna
It's
be a
gonna
glorious moment.
it's going to be good because that's I know one of the things people were anticipating because Vernestra is the only character so far from the books, and in the books it described with her light whip, it was just the curiosity of are they going to bring it to live action, and then if
Yeah,
they did, how they were going to do it. So I'm
yeah.
happy we actually get to see it work in action. So
And apparently, there's one other lightsaber that is waiting to be discovered in this show that made the prop department go like, I don't know if we can do that. So I'm very intrigued to see what actually that will entail too. So listeners, be on the lookout for that and let us know if you see it before I do.
it's like put the timestamp on where you found it in the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a plot point here, exactly where it takes place.
It's like exactly at 17 minutes 32 seconds this happens. This is the saber.
Well, Christina, I'm at my last question here, but I think this is a really juicy one here. So, the end of the first episode shows our first glimpse of the quote unquote master, right? The dark side user who has been training May. And they say the following at the end: Jedi live in a dream they believe everyone shares. If you attack a Jedi with a weapon, you will fail. Steel nor laser are no threat to them, but an acolyte kills without a weapon. An acolyte kills the dream. What do you think these lines indicate? Why does May also need to kill one of these four Jedi that she's been tasked with without a weapon? And then finally, do you think the Master is a Sith? Question mark.
This is going to be intriguing because High Republic, there was really no Sith. There was the Nihil. So
Yeah,
it
at this
was
point,
like,
there's no Sith at all.
yeah, like in the books, there's nothing but with the Nihil. So it's not until we then see with the Phantom Menace with more of the Sith. So in the time, I'm guessing the time frame between High Republic and before the Phantom Menace, somehow Sith appears because we see that master at the end of the episode wield a red lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
So My thinking, it could be, again, a Jedi that's fallen to the dark side with there. But it's like intriguing to see on how that's going to form when the Sith then finally forms within that time frame,
Mm-hmm.
because it's still High Republic era. To the knowledge, it's like still Nihil is still like the villain of that era.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but it's going to be intriguing to see. I'm like curious: is the Nihil like a fallen Tempest runner, or is it something having a former Nihil that somehow managed to make its way dabbling into the Force, and ta-da, there's your first Sith. I
Mm-hmm.
know that's
Mm-hmm.
probably not it, but it's just intriguing on seeing like how we go from Nihil to Sith between the span of 200 years
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
from there.
Well, I mean, it could just be a whole new thing. I mean, Balin Skull is not a Sith, and he's wielding a reddish lightsaber, and he's definitely using the dark side. He doesn't. He's something else. He doesn't even consider himself anything under those strict guidelines of that quote unquote religion.
That is true.
This could also a third theory out there too, or whatever. Many theories that are on about this character. Knights of Ren, right? They wear
Yeah.
masks? They have. I've seen a mask similar to this on one of those knights that they've got. Uh, could this be the first Ren? A Knight of Ren, the first Knight of Ren, maybe they're training May
Like
to
many
be.
years in advance for that, considering the Knights of Ren don't get later introduced until sequel trilogy. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's a
Who
long,
knows?
that would be a long period of time. And also what happened then, if that's the main theory, and if that is the theory, it's now another question, is like, why is the time frame so long between that moment and then when we first see Kylo Ren and the sequel trilogy?
Yeah, were they just hiding in the darkness and the meditating somewhere else while the Empire was taking over?
It's possible, but
They were
there's
like,
like,
the dark side is winning. This is great for everybody. We don't need to be
they're
involved.
basic they basically go, dark side's winning, let me join their side, they're winning, let's do that.
They were just stormtroopers. They're like, one helmet's a different helmet. All we need to do is cover our faces.
Exactly.
So why do you think that May needs to kill one of them without a weapon?
Ooh. Well, it's obvious also shown with May that she has some part with the Force, because
Mm-hmm.
when she's in between, in the middle of the city square with Sol and Yord, that she sees the ground and then she like puts her fists down and uses like the Force to create a dust storm so that she disappears
Mm-hmm.
from
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah, I loved it. It was just
So
like, ooh, can't see me.
she's like, bah!
It was
She
like a
gets pushed.
Batman. It was like a Batman trick. Throw down like a, a gas bomb and escapes. Can't see me. Goodbye.
Yep, literally, and then she runs off. So, because it Loki also, I don't know if anybody else caught this, but like in when Osha is following like the younger version of May, and they mention lines back and forth that kind of like say that they're like one person but split into two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm like thinking they both are like strong with the Force
Yeah.
that I'm thinking of. So maybe because may have like some of the Force in her, but using for like the dark side of the Force,
Mm-hmm.
probably it's just something that goes in the book saying like, oh, you must kill somebody without using any weapons, so you need to use the Force in
Yeah.
order to do that. Because that's when that happened, I was like, oh, this also low-key brings back towards the dyad between like Kylo and Rey.
Right.
Like they're joined together by the Force as one, even though they're two different people. So this could be similar with May and Osha. They could be like coming from one big thing with the Force, but they again got separated into two. Both have the Force in them. Osha was the one that trained under the Jedi, and then May is now being trained under something else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I definitely got Dyad vibes from the two of them, especially when they said that weird
Yeah,
chant kind of thing. Out of two become one. Me is you. You is me.
it's me. Yeah. I'm
Whatever
like,
that fully
dyad!
was. I mean, my brain immediately went like, "Oh, are they a dyad?" Even though they're both twins to begin with. What are we doing here? What are we doing, guys? Come on. Um, I I think it's interesting that like they're very adamant, like especially about the dogma of like you must kill one of them without a weapon. And my brain goes to like, she's gonna have to do something so up close and personal about that, right? Like you can't. There's a bit of like when you use a weapon, I guess. I've never had to use a weapon to kill anybody, so this is purely speculative on this one. Um, there is a degree of separation, right? Because if you're using like a blaster or something like that, like the person is 15 feet away, 100 feet away, whatever. If you're using a lightsaber, you're jabbing at them several feet away. A dagger, again, you can throw those. The person doesn't need to be right in front of you, but to see them in their eyes, right? You got to look at them. You have to really commit to what you're doing there. I think that's probably in line. My brain's going right now of the why behind that. Like it's a full immersion and commitment to the dark side, right? This unnatural thing of taking one's life in such a brutal and grotesque way that would be so up close and personal like that, where if they have to do like, I don't know, pulling from Indiana Jones, pull their heart out, right? Something like that.
Okay.
What could be any of those things, but it's just fascinating that they want some. I mean, it is the dark side, right? Darkness is it's a dark thing. It is sometimes grotesque, sometimes very evil, and these are along those same lines too. So it kind of fits in line with that. But it begs the question, like in the Sith lore that I've heard so far, there is nothing saying that you must do that, right? The only thing that I've ever heard is in order to build your lightsaber, you need to kill a Jedi, take their kyber crystal, and then bleed it yourself.
Yeah.
But maybe if this is a rendition of the Sith or an offshoot of it, then 100 years, this could be a different side of it, a different path, a different walk of the dark side, a different walk of the Sith. Who knows? This all could be fair game, and we're just living in Leslie Headland's sandbox.
Oh yes, and she's doing a phenomenal job so far. Like the first two episodes are phenomenal. I'm hooked. Just it's very curious to see what's then going to happen later on, because I know from teasers and trailers we're going to see more of like the master up close with that mask, and at one point the mask is going to be off.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another intriguing thing to see play out with that. So it's gonna be fun. The Acolyte is very fun so far, and I love it because it's reminiscent of like giving me very much prequel energy from Phantom Menace era, but then again,
Mm-hmm.
it is something new too. Like it's something in Star
Yeah.
Wars we really have not seen before, and it's great. And I also love the fact that it's going to be like new characters with
Mm-hmm.
here, so we're not going to be following like the same characters over and over again. We're now here's a new group, new era of characters that have like similar parallels to ones we know, but like we still are attached to them. Like to be fair, I don't know if you feel the same with the characters, but
Mm-hmm.
I have like I have a connection with each one of them. Like it
Mm.
took me like I love them all. Like between with Osha, with May, even like with May, like her character is so intriguing, and Kimar as well, like being the accomplice with May, and it's just so they're all so different, but then you connect with each one of them, so it's like you are holding on for like life for all of them. Like you don't want any of them to die.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want anything bad to happen to these guys to begin with. Right? I've appreciated getting to know them already. I like what I've seen so far of their characters, and I want to see more time with them and spend more time with them. Frankly, this that I like what you said there. There is a familiar aspect to this, both being somewhat familiar with the Phantom Menace and the High Republic era. So whether it be in book or in physical format via the Phantom Menace, were familiar to us, but yet all the characters are unfamiliar to us. So we get to forge these new relationships with them. And this show, I think, is, at least in my opinion, I think in yours, from what you've stated so far, is that they've done a good job of making us care for these characters already, in a sense that we want to see them grow and do cool things and accomplish stuff and find out this mystery before bad things happen to them. But Kelnaka, I don't think it's looking good for you, buddy.
No, not the Wookiee.
Not the Wookiee. Not the
Not
Wookiee.
Jonas Swatamo. No, we need more of
So,
you.
someone go check on our poor little Wookiee that doesn't know what's coming to him. Like, forget these committees, Vernestra. There's a chance that poor
There's a
Kalnaka
Wookiee
could
in
go.
danger.
It's a Wookiee in
Go
danger. I mean, I'm sure he can handle himself, but he could use a help or two. A helping hand wouldn't hurt.
But make sure the hand's attached to something, though, not just a hand.
Yeah, don't be a droid. Don't be a droid that can pull its arms out of their sockets. Like,
It's
don't mess with him. Don't mess with Kelnaki. He doesn't mess with you. But
exactly.
is that May's future? Losing her arms? Is that what we're
Oh my
talking
god.
about here?
If it's the left, hold on. If it's a right hand, then she's just following the Skywalker line.
That's true. That's true. Or, I mean, yeah, it could
And
be
Crosshair as well.
middle part of the season. Yep, someone loses a hand. It's Star Wars. It's Star Wars. People are gonna lose hands. Don't watch out. Watch out, characters. You may not perish, but you may lose an arm.
You may
It's
lose
more
a
likely.
Oh
Well,
my
Christina,
goodness.
this has been a fantastic conversation here. Do you have any final thoughts on these first two episodes, The Acolyte or The High Republic in general?
All I'm saying is I'm ready for more. I cannot wait to see what happens next. I am deep in the Acolyte. I'm in my Acolyte era.
I agree. I can't wait to see where this show goes to. And for the folks at home, if they want to continue the conversation with you, where can they find you on social media?
So on my Twitter and my Instagram is the same. It's GanoCJ. That is GANOCJ on both. I post a lot of Star Wars stuff, but also like I dabble in some other things like Disney and all that fun things. So feel free. My DMs are open. So if you want to discuss even after the showing to prevent spoilers, feel free. I love talking Star Wars with everybody.
Fantastic. Any upcoming theme weeks?
Well, we have Bad Batch that's coming up, but we are going to be doing one for the Starbucks Been There mug series that Disney put out during May the 4th. I will be
Oh, yeah.
doing outfits based on each mug for each planet that gets represented. So keep an eye for that.
All right. That sounds great. I can't wait to see because you're so creative with these theme weeks that you do. And it's just really wonderful to see your creativity come out on full display when it comes to that. And I can't wait to see the Bad Batch stuff too, because even though the Bad Batch is over, it's never over in our hearts. And I'm glad
It's
that you're
never
keeping
over.
the torch of the flame of the Bad Batch spirit alive and running with just keeping in the conversation first and foremost, but and also celebrating it too through your unique way to do so. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the show to chat about these first two episodes of The Acolyte. It's been a true honor and a privilege to have you back on. Of course, you're going to not be a stranger to these Force Ghost Conversations episodes in their future. I know when we get to Visions eventually, I know I have you tapped for that one. So listeners, be excited. We haven't talked Visions yet. We're going to get there. Trust me, we've had a lot to get through up until then. But you know where I'm at as well on all social media sites. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. Just search for Force Ghost Conversations and you'll find us in some capacity. And guess what? We've got another episode coming out next Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, 8 o'clock Central Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time, many other time zones across the world. But if you want to watch The Acolyte, do so next Tuesday and then come back to Force Ghost Conversations. You know, we'll be chatting episode 3. We'll have a new guest next week, so be on the lookout for that one. And until then, may the Force be with you. Take care.